Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Energy Stoners Cafe and Talk with TQ. We're doing a continuing series with our, I guess I want to say our resident wellness practitioner, Dr. Jason Elias. He's also an author. He wrote a fantastic book called The Seven Graces of Ageless Aging, subtitled How to Die Young as Late in Life as Possible. And I'm just very intrigued with this book. Every chapter gives you a reason or I guess a suggestion or an insight of yours, of Jason's, on what you could do or not do to live a longer, wonderful, healthy life. So you're back. I'm so glad you're back, Jason. Thank you.
Oh, me too. This is fun. It'll keep me young. We got to keep talking.
It'll keep us both young. Yes,
Keep
indeed.
engaged.
So I love this book because I think it's the kind of thing, once you open it, you just want to keep reading it because every single chapter is relevant. And I think because of the kind of work you do, that you've had the privilege, or you've been privy to the stories of people that have lived a very long time. So getting to the point, let's talk about the graces. Just kind of go through them like a little bit to give an overview. I want to give people a reason to understand why I think that this book is so great. So I'm looking at the first grace, which is rewriting the script. So what is it to rewrite the script?
It's really to rewrite the way we've been programmed, and we continue to program ourselves to get old. We're always told, I was brought up where don't trust anyone over 30. And as we baby boomers kept going 40, 50, 60, and I'm not that far from 80, and I feel really vital and young. So I keep rewriting the script. I don't get old until I feel old, and that can be a long time from now. And that's
Maybe never.
Maybe never,
Yeah.
but so the first grace, rewriting the script, is really buying some of those myths that as I get older, I'm going to be feeble. I'm not going to remember things. I'm going to repeat myself. It's not a guarantee that you won't, but the idea, if you believe you will, you will.
I think that's interesting because I think a lot of times people think that when you get to a certain age, you shouldn't do this or you have to do that. I find that, I don't want to ask what you think of this. What I've observed, okay, is that baby boomers, we tend to bring our youth with us into our old age. It's not like we think, okay, so now you're, 60, so that means you got to just be an old altacaca. That's it. You can't do anything. You can't wear lipstick anymore. No more short skirts. You definitely don't want to, exert yourself too much. And there are people like that. But I think it's more in our parents' generation. What have you observed in people that are living to like 100 years old?
Yeah, and I'm meeting more and more of them. I'm actually going this weekend to visit my aunt, who's 100 and a Holocaust survivor,
Oh,
both.
wow.
And it's really, she's an inspiration to me, although she is having memory issues. That didn't begin until she was 99. So I think we're rewriting our own scripts. I do feel like everyone that I've worked with who I feel has aged gracefully doesn't buy into that restriction, that I shouldn't move out of my comfort zone. I think that's a key. And I know you keep moving out of yours. We've been talking personally, and I keep setting, it's scary because it's like, can I do this? But when we set discomfort as part of our conscious aging, we're expanding our consciousness. We improve our neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the nervous system to change and to grow. We grow telomeres, which are part of the nervous system that actually keeps us younger. It supports our central nervous system. So we have a lot of scientific proof that we need to keep pushing the boundaries.
The youthfulness is really, I like to think of aging as an exercise in retaining, I won't say maintaining and retaining one's youthfulness. where some people think, well, I'm 50 now, I'm 60, so what's the point of trying to have a nice body? Why? You know, nobody's ever going to look at me again. I hear people say stuff like that. Like, what do you do in your practice to get the people that are like the naysayers of growing old to change their monologue, the monologue in their head?
Yeah. I mean, I try to make them aware of the monologue. It's like I will, and I did today. I had a client today who was, complaining about getting older and, moving more slowly and, being a couch potato. And I said, who did that? And she, well, my parents did that. I said,
Mm.
do you want to continue that? And she thought about it and she said, am I programming myself? I said, yeah. We need to kind of think about what we tell ourselves by our actions and look at someone who can be a role model who actually exemplifies not having those thoughts. So I try to get in when I can if someone is interested. They have to show that they're willing willing to tango.
They have to kind of open their mind quite a bit in many cases, depending on who it is. Now, when you get to the second grace, finding your tribe, it's about the relationships. You found that in your practice, you found that people that have these long, healthy lives, the relationships are important.
Yeah. And I do feel that it's the connection we have with people. If someone has that in their biological family, it's such a gift where, they have connections, they're loved and accepted for who they are. But the truth is, in most cases, the people I speak to aren't that blessed. In their biological family, there are expectations. In their church, there are expectations. And there's a feeling that for me to be accepted by this group, I need to conform to their standards. And on some level, it creates a lack of self-worth. It's like, well, I don't feel that way. And I don't, so we're kind of trading off being authentic, being happy with who we are. So I'm not saying to give up your biological family, but most of us create a family in our lives of people. So that's the tribe. We can make our tribe. And all the studies show when we feel connected, we live longer, we live healthier, and find people who love you and support you as you are. You don't have to change for them. And,
Right.
it's really important.
Yeah. And in thinking about that, the next chapter is on mindfulness. I think that I believe that many people they don't understand that what they say about themselves will be, they don't always understand that people that they associate with, are negative and they might perhaps absorb that horrible energy.
Yeah. I don't want to give my power away.
Yeah.
And lastly, I mean, I've really found joy. Actually, my autobiography,
Yes.
my memoir is called Kissing Joy as It Flies. And, if what brings you joy is sabotaged by the people you're around, look again. Find someone who can accept your joy and who they don't have to embrace it, they don't have to understand it. But if their happiness depends on pulling you down to a different level, where you feel guilt, where you feel anger, where you feel less than yourself, there's something wrong with that equation. So that's your tribe, the people. Yeah.
To tribe, that kind of thing I find, just to sort of digress a little bit, is that's very common. I believe that's very common in teenagers, where
Absolutely.
you cannot be part of like the in crowd. And so people are like shunning you, or maybe you might be bullied. I'm wondering if a lot of this starts there.
Well, I think it starts in the family. I really do. I
Mhm.
mean, it's if you want to be part of this group, this is what you do. And then it's amplified, I think, as you say, in the school teenage years when we don't want to identify with the family. We're looking for a peer group and we give them power. And that's where so much bullying and harassing happens. So yeah, we have to get through all that before we can start really choosing.
Yeah, yeah. It's a task, it's a challenge, to live this life. I learned that. I've been learning it over and over again. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you talked about joy, okay? Awakening joy, finding um simplicity, humor. People that live longer tend to look for something to laugh at. That's what I've personally noticed about older people that are living a nice life. They're looking for something to laugh at, to laugh about.
I mean, we've been through so much pain. We can capitalize on the pain, or we can realize we have a choice in every moment to celebrate being and finding things to be happy about, or, to really obsess with the pain. We spoke last week about mindfulness, so we have the tribe. Mindfulness was about, and again, I'm going to repeat what we said last week a little, because I think the name is a misnomer. Mindfulness is being in the moment, being in the now. And you can only be joyful in the now. If you're worried about what other people think of you, if you judge yourself, you're not in the moment. You're not in your senses. So, that phrase, come to your senses, it means get out of your head, which can never be present. The nature of the head is to look at the past, project possible futures with it, but it's never embracing this moment, feeling the wind on your skin, smelling the smells that you're around, tasting. It's like really, and when you're in that, that's what we call mindfulness, or at least that's what they teach as mindfulness. It's not being in the mind, but really, what are you feeling? Breathe, connect to so I think that's really important, to get out of the judgment, get out of the head. And
Yeah, I think people think, I know people who think that it's just like a lot of talk to put a label on something, to sell something or sell an idea. But I think it really is, I think these steps, these graces, I even see them almost like as the graces of survival and thriving.
absolutely. I mean, I wrote it thinking of how to age gracefully, but my son read it in
Mhm.
his 20s and he loved it. He said, these are principles for people. These are principles to live a full life. You know,
There,
but you were talking about laughter.
mhm,
And, and that is, which grace is that? That's the fourth grace. That's after mindfulness.
mhm,
One of my simplicity and humor gurus is this guy, Danny Klein. I read a number of his books. He wrote, Plato and Platypus Walk into a Bar. And he's a philosopher. He writes about philosophy, but he tells it through jokes. So when I read one of his books on aging, uh, and aging gracefully, he went to Greece, and I told the story of him last time. The first thing he said when I went to interview him is, there's this guy who's walking through the woods and he hears, "Hey, mister," and he looks around and he doesn't see anyone. "Psst, mister." He looks around. He said, "Look down here," and he looks down. And he sees a frog. And he said, "Is that you?" He said, "Yeah, yeah, it's me. I can talk. But if you pick me up and if you kiss me, I become a princess. I'll do anything you want. I'll cook for you. I'll go to bed with you. I'll do, and all your dreams fulfilled." He said, "Very interesting." He picks up the frog, puts it in his pocket, continues to walk on. And the frog goes, "Psst, mister, I told you if you kiss me, I will do anything for you." He said, "Well, at this time in my life, I think having a talking frog is a little more interesting." So, you know, it's giggling, it's finding things that we can make light of.
Yeah, I like that. That's a pretty
So
good one.
it's cute, right?
Yeah, I have a yoga class and we tell jokes to each other during the class.
I
Every
love
every
that.
week someone comes on with something different. It's good. And we get to stretch out, which is a beautiful thing. So I think the thing that in the beginning I spoke about baby boomers, the fifth grace of pursuing your passion. I think what's happened is a lot of people, what I've observed, I don't know exactly what's going on, I have to admit, but what I've observed is a lot of people that maintain a youthful life, or youthfulness, they are doing something that they love doing, or they're finally doing something that they love doing.
I think of my life, when I wrote the memoir, I traveled around the world and I did things that to a lot of people, they felt required courage and bravery. And I said, no, I'd be much braver if I didn't do that. It's like there's a current that when we tap into that current, it guides us. And that's the passion. Now, it could be art, it could be helping people, it could be, but something that ignites us when we're out of the current, we feel disease, we feel out of sorts. So for me to do that trip around the world studying with different people was really, I couldn't not. It was too
Right.
painful not to follow, but you don't know where it's leading. It's not that we can all have a job in life that excites our passion, but I think we can't let our passion be extinguished. So if you have to do a 9 to 5 to feed your family, we do the 9 to 5, but continue to look for things that kind of move us and have your passions on your own. But if you can jive being able to support yourself and being pulled by that passion, then you've hit the jackpot. It's great.
Yeah, if you can get all these things all together in like one package, that would be so great. And you can. I should read the book. But I'm thinking about, very often I've heard of relationships where people get involved with somebody and then they stop doing what they always did, what they always loved, because maybe that person didn't like it. It's not like that person that you're with doesn't like your friends. That's one thing. But it's another thing if they don't like something that you love. I've seen some disasters, not in my own life, but I've seen some disasters in other people's lives, but they've sacrificed what they feel passionate about for the sake of another person or just being in that relationship. I imagine you deal with a lot of complex situations.
Yeah, it really is complex. And there isn't an answer, as you know.
Yeah,
But to me, feeling your joy suppressed is unacceptable for where I am now.
yeah,
And it's hard. You're in a relationship. Does the relationship feed you? Does a relationship nourish who you are? And then do I get out of a relationship that I've invested this much time in?
mm,
So obviously there isn't an answer to that, but when my spirit, for me personally, feels imprisoned,
hmm,
it's too painful, so
yeah.
can I bring the person that I love on the journey with me? Have I done everything I can to embrace moving together in some way, giving to your partner and your partner giving to you? If it doesn't work,
Have you found like is there definitely a difference that women we do live longer? Is that still the case from when you first started practicing? I hear that gap is narrowing.
men and women.
Yeah.
I think it's narrowing a bit, but women still, I do feel it's relationships and connections.
Oh, okay.
Men often bought into the old, you work at a company, and then when you're 65, you're shut out, you retire. And
Yeah.
when you haven't developed social skills, and if your social skills are all in the workplace, and then all of a sudden, my father died like a year after he was forced to retire,
Wow.
and it was his business. And I know so many people like that because they haven't, their worth is connected to their production or their productivity or their business.
Yeah.
Women, I think, have more connections, more friendships. And that's why I think women live longer. But I think, as more people are following their passions, maybe we're narrowing the gap. I have no idea. I'm just
Perhaps.
talking off the cuff.
Well, I think what's happened is we're getting the same jobs that we couldn't get before, because we were women. That's what I think. You know, just being someone that is a baby boomer, who is a baby boomer, that would be me. I know that when you take a job, even if it's something that's a corporate job that's normally filled by a man, you don't get paid as much, but you'd still get the same amount of pressure, if not more so.
Mhm.
That's why it sort of surprises me that that number is still where we live longer.
it's still a little longer, but you're right. Women, rather than freeing themselves, have taken on the burden, the man's burden, and kept their own. I mean,
Yes.
you take care of the kids. Very few men do the housework, so a woman now has much more power, but she hasn't been able to throw the yoke of, but, there, yeah.
Do you ever feel that there's some kind of a positive shift in the collective over the past 5 years? Do you feel anything good? I mean, do you see like a positive shift in the collective? I mean, we've all changed over
I
the
mean, a
past three,
few
four
years
years.
ago, I would have said definitely. I mean, I really feel, that things are being more equally distributed. Lately, it's been feeling much more oppressive. So I
Yeah.
try to stay out of politics. I really, the divisions and
Mm.
divisions they age us. It's like it becomes us and them. We've lost, I think it's a feminine art to communicate. It's a feminine art to try to be diplomatic and look at both sides and find something that we can move through. The masculine was the war. I don't, so it's like you rule. And on
Yeah.
some level, we've been moving collectively, embracing our feminine. And then this energy pulled us back. And I'm hoping it's just the death throes of that patriarchal, warlike power structure society, because we're in two camps. That's the male domination thing. You
Mhm.
know, it's,
Anthropological. It's not just biological.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
think
mean, it
it's
was
in
fun.
our bones. You know, that's the only way I could
Yeah, and I
describe it.
think we have to find that merger in ourselves, the male and the female, the power and the softness, that yin and yang. And I think it's our responsibility to find the balance. It's not one or the other, but we're all androgynous. We all have both yin and yang, male, female, power and softness, yield. So I think that's our challenge. And I feel like we can mount that. We can do that.
I often wonder what it would be like to raise a child in this day and age. I don't have children, but I often wonder, like, what would it be like to raise a child now? If you had a kid that's like 10, 11, 12, which are such crucial years, and then you're older than them, obviously, or they could be a grandchild. That's why I think your book is important, because I think youthfulness, I don't know, I just think it breeds a lot of other things if you just decide to be that way, but some people can't, I imagine.
Yeah. It's really about hope. The kids today, with global, I mean, we can go into a political or cultural
Hmm.
thing, and it's a difficult time. But at the same time, sometimes when you're confronted with these existential issues, will the planet that I'm inhabiting survive? So it's harder to get kids today to go into the 9 to 5s because they don't have the security of IBM. So on some level, maybe something is roiling in them to be the change of the next generation. That's my hope. And I feel these principles for aging are principles even for the kids, that they can tap into and say no to the rules that the elders have given them and say, I'm going to find, these 7 graces within myself. I mean, I'm going to find joy. I'm going to find people who accept me for who I am. I'm going to be into a relationship that's give and take. I'm going to eat healthy foods because, we'll talk about that later, but diet, exercise, and herbs, really play a part. And
Yes.
a lot of my clients are kids now, not, but I have a lot of teenagers. I have a lot of 20 somethings, which is new. I mean, they were excited. A lot of them feel this type of work excites them. What does it take to do what you do? It's like it makes a difference, and I like that. Yeah.
I think there's been almost what I see is maybe even like a full circle in a sense, where in our generation, I can remember going to school in the 70s, high school and college, and we were very, and even as a child in grammar school, very conscious. We were raised to be very conscious of the environment. I remember that commercial with the Native American with the tear running down his face. and as someone's driving by in their car and throwing garbage out out of their window, and then they shoot to the Native American with a tear going down his face.
I remember that distinctly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like etched, it's like almost etched in our DNA. That it's kind of like having certain music that's our soundtrack. But what I've noticed is I see that there are millennials, that are very, I'd say, committed to sustainability. They have a different goal because we need sustainability. We've already messed up a lot of the planet, not all of it, but sustainability, seems to be the thing. So I have hope.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. Hope springs eternal, and hope I think it gets us going. If we lose hope, what's the point?
Yeah,
So
what's the
I think
point?
we just need to keep that energy alive. And I think, when the organism is left to its own, it heals itself. It's called homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the earth is really out of alignment,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it can heal itself if we start paying attention. And if not, then we have to go inside and find wholeness in ourselves because,
Right.
you do what you can for the world, but, no matter what, no one can take me. And
Right.
that's why, these monks, will light themselves on fire or do things that are, because they see the body as, a vehicle. It's not who I am. I'm so much more.
Yeah, this is just a spacesuit. When my husband said that to me, when he was dying, he says, "This is just a spacesuit and I'm glad to shed it," And
Mhm.
that's what it is. We're just spiritual beings leading a human life. And God bless us all. That's what I say. We made
Absolutely.
it this far. But on that note, what I want to do is tell the audience about the next show, which is going to be about races 6 and 7. It kind of sums it all up in a sense. So for now, I'll say thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Energy Stoners Cafe and Talk with TQ. I thank my guest, Dr. Jason Elias. I'm just so thrilled with what he does and his way of thinking. And until next time, see you later. Bye-bye.